Hey, hi, hello, welcome back. I've got my coffee. I'm drinking coffee in a funny way today. This is a coffee episode, and I'm drinking some Maru's Mexico Finca Santa Cruz, which is a really excellent coffee, but I made it on my Mocha Master, and then I had to leave and run some errands, and then I came back and it was cold, so I just turned the hot plate back on and reheated it, which I feel in coffee circles is sacrilege, but honestly, tastes great. This is really good coffee, and being reheated on a hot plate did not degrade how good it is. So we're gonna roll with it. Yeah, you heard me correctly. This is a coffee episode. This is going to be about coffee. If the title of this video was not obvious enough, I am letting you know now. For those of you who want more photography based stuff, I have a video coming out in the next week or so about my friends Maddie and Matt coming to visit us from Chicago. They are film friends. We went to San Francisco and Santa Cruz and shot a lot of photos, and it's going to be a fun, relaxing, chill little video. So fear not, photography content is coming. However, I would deign to say that coffee and photography are intrinsically linked culturally. I feel that a lot of people that I know, a lot of photographers that I've come across, a lot of coffee people I've come across, there's a lot of overlap in photography, not just film, but all sorts of photography and coffee. Pour over, drip, espresso, all sorts of stuff. It is something that I feel that every photographer talks about ad nauseum, but I don't see a lot of photographers, at least on YouTube, kind of bridging that gap on their channel besides talking about what kind of coffee they like or what they're drinking. I'm guilty of that, but I've decided earlier this year to put my mouth where the money goes, or however you say that saying. I talked about this in a video. I think it was my winter favorites video. I got a really, really cheap espresso maker. Also, for those of you who are coffee nerds, the espresso machine, it's called a Chefman. It is made by some company somewhere. It works. It definitely works. Does it always work? No. Did I just try to pull a shot of espresso and it stalled? And I was too afraid to take the portafilter off because I knew it was going to explode everywhere. So it's now just sitting with the portafilter on it with coffee inside of it, just hoping that the pressure goes down. Yeah, that did happen. That just happened. That's why I'm drinking reheated drip coffee, because I didn't want to spend all of my afternoon trying to figure out why I messed up somewhere. That coffee maker was around $50. It can steam. I've never tried to. I just assume that the steam pressure is probably not adequate for what I want to do with it. It can pull shots that are pretty good if you take a lot of time and like really get into it and figure out your times and your grind. It doesn't like really finely ground coffee, so you have to kind of compromise, even though I did get a different portafilter with a naked portafilter bottom and a bigger brew basket. It's difficult to pull really good shots out of it super consistently. The battery on my monitor is dying, so I got to change that. Hold on. I haven't really been using it since we moved, just because getting it dialed back in, it's been hard. So I decided I'm probably going to give up on this machine, not because it's not good at pulling espresso. It is. You can definitely get good espresso out of it. I decided I wanted something a little bit better. You guys already know, or those of you who might not know who are new here, hey, welcome. I was a barista for a long time. I'm a veteran of the specialty coffee industry. I've been around. I've worked on a lot of different espresso machines. I've had a lot of luck in that way that I've been able to work at really cool places and play with some really fun espresso machines. And as such, I'm a little bit spoiled where I've been able to use such nice espresso machines that I miss that feeling of pulling a good shot on a machine consistently. I thought for the longest time, I'm only going to get that experience if I work at a cafe, but that's actually not true. There are a lot of entry-level espresso machines that are very, very capable that you can have in your home, that you can have that same sort of experience. And a lot of people have been doing it for a long time. I just have never been involved in that community up until now. Let me just bring it out. This is my Gaggia Classic Pro. Actually, no. This is not my Gaggia Classic Pro. This is just a Gaggia Classic. There's nothing pro about this machine. This machine was given to me by my friend Terrence before I left Los Angeles. He blew this machine up, and we'll get into the insides and I'll show you kind of what I'm dealing with, but this is not a working espresso machine right now. It will be. I'm going to take you on the journey of rehabilitating, rebuilding, and making this espresso machine pull excellent shots once again that it once did in its glory days. So this is the first episode of a series of me rebuilding this espresso machine. Now you might be thinking, Chris, why this espresso machine? Why did you pick a broken espresso machine? Why not just buy, if you want this machine, a Gaggia Classic Pro for like $500 on Whole Latte Love or some other Seattle coffee company, whatever, some other coffee supply company? Well, I'll tell you why, because $500 is a lot. So I don't really have a bunch of money to go throwing around on a new espresso machine. $500 is a lot to spend at once. But the other reason is this machine, these machines specifically, are really popular in the espresso home DIY scene or community, because these can be modified, rebuilt, fixed, changed really, really easily and super cheaply. The parts are super available. You can get them for relatively inexpensive. You can wrench on this machine all you want, and it's super, super easy to do. You can pretty much take this whole machine apart and rebuild it in like an afternoon. And then on top of that, this is an entry-level espresso machine that has pro capabilities. I'm not saying this is a pro machine. It's not. It is not something that you would use to make espresso drinks at volume. That would be very, very terrible, and it would suck really bad. However, this thing can pull very consistent, very delicious espresso shots under the right conditions very consistently. At its stock, back to its bare bones stock from the factory, arrangement, it can pull incredibly good espresso shots at home, just as good as you're going to get in a cafe with very little effort. And that is the point here, that and being able to rebuild it myself. According to the little badge on the bottom, the little sticker, it is a 2010 model, which is good because it means it comes with an OPV valve, which is overpressure valve, meaning that if the boiler goes over a specific pressure that you have set, like if you have this set for 6 bars or 9 bars, pressure gets over that, it'll bleed that pressure off so that you're not exceeding the pressure at the group head. That's done through a spring and some tubes, and the extra pressure comes out right here. I don't know if you can see that. You can see that. This tube here goes from the valve to the drip tray. It'll just be farted out into the drip tray, which is a lot cleaner and a lot less scalding. This is considered a very, very good starting point. This is a good model to start with. It's easily modifiable and fixable, and all the parts that this thing needs to get working are available on the market for very cheap. Now, let's talk about what's wrong with this machine. There are some problems. My friend did not have a great explanation as to what was going on with this thing and why it wasn't working, but he thinks that something melted down at some point, and he is correct. Something did melt down. This machine essentially is a few parts. It's a vibratory pump, overpressure valve, it's a water boiler, and it's a steam valve, and then a group head. But the group head and the boiler are kind of, the same. They're in the same thing. So it's a very simple machine in that way. What happened here is we have the steam valve attached off of the boiler, and what that does is if you put it in steam mode, which is this big middle button rocker switch right here, you can create steam in the boiler, and then when you open the steam valve, steam will come out so you can steam your milk. Something happened here where there was some thermal runaway and it melted the steam knob onto the steam valve, which is not good. That means that there's too much heat. I'm just going to pull the whole boiler out right now so you can see it. Oh, gross. Do you see that? That's a good amount of scale and grossness. I don't know if you can really see that inside there. Yeah, that gasket's torched. It's not terrible. I've seen worse, but it's not great. So this obviously got really hot. Because of that, a lot of these connections on the top here that go to the different wires, they got really hot and some of them burned. So there's quite a bit of burnt stuff just on top of this. And then this right here, these are the two heating elements, on one on each side of the boiler. Out of an abundance of caution, because these electrical contacts on the heaters here are toasted, I'm going to toss this boiler and replace it. Because I could descale it. I could, try to rehabilitate it. But the thing that bothers me the most is that these heaters seem like they might be toast. And I don't want to take a chance of putting this thing back together after doing a bunch of labor and it not working, because it got way too hot. So this boiler is toast. It's going to go into the bin. The group head, I'm torn. The group head's kind of fine. It's, a little bit dirty, but I can totally clean that. But I'm kind of at the mind to replace it, just to start from scratch, just to start from like a really good square one. I'm definitely replacing all these wires. There's electrical tape wrapped around some wires here that I don't know what for. These wires are all bubbled and burnt. It's just messy. They're just kind of messy. Yeah, I just really want to start over. I want to keep the switch, because the rocker switches people really like on these older models. They move to push button switches at some point, and then they move to a different style of rocker switch. I really like the way they feel, so I'm going to keep those. I might change the pump. I don't know if I have to. I don't think there's a problem with the pump, but we will test it. The portafilter. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong, technically, with this portafilter from Gaggia, the one that was with this machine when it was sold. But I don't really like the handle all that much, and I would prefer a naked bottom portafilter so that we can see. I'm not really splitting shots, so I don't really need the split fork thing. I also want to get different brew baskets, some VSTs, some other ones that are more precision drilled out or punched out for those holes down there, because if they're not precision, you're going to have some weird problems. The drip tray's fine. I know there's people who modify the drip tray. I don't know if I'm going to do that. Oh. Okay. This thing, the water tank is always a point of contention, because there's not really a way to see easily how much water is left in your tank. But I saw a guy do something really cool. He got a blue straw, which will float on the water, and it's an easy way to see the water level, because against the frosted tank, it's easy to see like a bright blue straw. I might do something similar like that. Oh, this thing is gross. This thing is gross. This thing needs to be cleaned a lot. Yeah, so all in all, good bones. Okay, this is a good starting point. I got this for free. So I have some parts on order. I have some parts coming in that I'm going to be throwing into this thing and making it work. So when I decided I wanted to rebuild this thing, I did what any person would do who doesn't know better. I went to Reddit. Reddit has a pretty robust community of espresso machine enthusiasts, and there are subreddits specifically for Gaggia Classics. And on that subreddit, I've had some really good advice and some really great conversations with other people who are interested in rehabbing Gaggia Classics. And one of the main questions that I had was it worth it to ditch the aluminum boiler and then buy a brass boiler? The newer brass boilers that Gaggia makes are a little bit bigger in capacity, so you can fit more water in there, which is good if you want to steam, because you'll have a little extra water in there to make steam. The problem is this is like a $40 part without the steam valve. The brass boilers are like $160. Brass is a heavier type of metal. It has much more heat retention, the retention properties of the retentive properties. It holds heat a lot better. Once it gets hot, it'll hold that heat really well, kind of like a cast iron pan. Aluminum will get rid of heat pretty quickly, but aluminum will also heat up a lot faster. My main question was, is it really, worth the extra capacity and the heat, the heat stuff, the heat retention? What I was basically told that because of the capacity of these machines, retention of heat is less of an issue because you're not going to be pulling a ton of shots, and you also aren't going to need this to hold a lot of heat for a long period of time. You just need it long enough to pull your shots of espresso. So brass is nice, but kind of like overkill. Not necessarily overkill, just kind of like not necessary. So I think I'm going with the original aluminum boiler just to keep this thing pretty stock. So that was like a big hurdle I kind of wanted to get over. The rest of this I can pretty much figure out on my own. The steam valve is very straightforward. They're like $70. I don't know why they're so expensive, but they are. These have a little needle valve on the inside that will go bad or leak. And so I'm going to try to figure out a way to keep that from happening in mine. But that is a common problem. So I've got some parts on order. They're coming here. And once those parts get here, then I can start showing you the rebuild process. I think the first thing I'm going to do is rip out all this wiring and replace the wiring with a new wiring harness that I purchased. And then actually, the first thing I'm going to do is clean this thing because gross. Yucky. This is just gross. And then once I get it all cleaned up, then I'll start throwing parts in. I'm hoping this will be at least a 3 or 4 part series where I tackle a specific problem and you guys can see me go from the beginning to the end. And then at some point you'll see me pull some shots of espresso. Fingers crossed. My only real hobby is like photography, but that's not my hobby because that's kind of my job. And then now I run a film lab, so film's not really a hobby anymore. That's also my job. So everything that was a hobby has become a job. And I used to be a barista. I used to be a professional coffee maker, but I'm not anymore. So now that I'm not a professional coffee maker anymore, I can make coffee my hobby. This has always been something I was interested in doing, but I never had the time to. But I'm going to take some time. I'm going to make some time to do something for myself, for fun. And that is rebuilding this espresso machine. Thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. And like I said, there will be more photography content coming. I just wanted to do something a little bit different this time, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys follow along with the series. There will be more videos coming out of me rebuilding this espresso machine. So please, if you haven't subscribed, you should do that. All right, yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys later.